This is the world that you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today. Welcome to a method to the madness.
Welcome back to our Matrix Quadrilogy series. I'm your host, Mitchie, and joining me as always is Patrick.
Hello.
And David.
Good to be back.
So, we're here. We're not quite at the end, although we would have been at the end if the new movie hadn't come out 2 years ago, but it did come out. So, this isn't quite the end. But it's the end of the trilogy, end of the original Matrix trilogy, which I think a lot of people are fond of. The Matrix Revolutions came out in the same year, 2003, starring Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, Lawrence Fishburne, Hugo Weaving. Yeah, I know, sorry, I got to do it. You know, it's just a protocol. And obviously, I haven't even changed it once because it's the same four actors over and over again. So, anyway, this is I don't know. I enjoyed this movie. I'm pretty keen to talk about it. I think it's very interesting to talk about for various reasons. But to begin, should we just jump straight into it? First opinions?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah? Who wants to go first?
I think Patrick should go first because he's the one that doesn't really have a lot of memory of this coming into this from our discussion so far. So I'm curious how you found it.
So we don't want to bias him.
Yeah.
Okay. This movie is very loud in a lot of senses, not just in the volume sense, although there is that as well. It's very loud in its production, in its energy, and therefore, and because so much of it is these action sequences, there is little to no time for the quiet moments, which comprise a lot of like the second movie, and those are the elements that I like about the previous films. So yeah, the first time I watched this movie, I was disappointed. Again, even I knew it was coming, so I was a bit less disappointed, and I enjoyed some elements what it had going for it. But yeah, overall, I think it's understandable why they made the decision to make this a blockbuster shooty shoot, crashy crash explosion film. It's just unfortunate that it is. I wonder if the Wachowskis thought that they did all the necessary setup for the second film, and then by this next film, as you said, it came out in the same year. Maybe they thought these are meant to be two halves of one whole, and that there would be enough context for set up in the second film, where the action in the third film would have, this interesting resonance and would carry, have like revelations and information in its, essentially that blend of action and philosophy that we talked about in the first film. I kind of think it doesn't though. Yep. It's vapid and it's kind of, it gets old real quick, and yeah, it's definitely the weakest out of the three. But it has some interesting things going on in it, and I imagine that's what we'll talk about. So, yeah.
Well, I'm always open to talking about why it's bad.
Oh, I'm sure we'll do that too. Yeah.
David, what do you think?
Pat has weirdly hit my opinion on the head. The way that I talk about this film is, it's like in the second Lord of the Rings film. If you got to Helm's Deep and then it cut to credits and it went to be continued and the next film was just Helm's Deep, like it would still be fun, but it would lose so much of the structural stuff that makes it go.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that because every time they go into the crypt in this movie, it reminds me of Helm's Deep.
Yeah. Well, it's very much of a piece with that kind of era of understanding what wars look like and things like that. But yeah, I think certainly I don't think I understood this film as a kid at all in like any useful capacity. Like I understood the action and stuff. Like I didn't know what the when Neo turns up in the train station, I was like, "What is huh?" And then coming back to it now, it's so interesting how much all of this just fits really nicely for me. But I think I agree with Pat's sentiment there. I think it needed another 30 minutes of space to have more quiet scenes and to have more conversations and to have more of the stuff we like from the first two. But I also think, I also appreciate the length and the lack of those moments creates a momentum and an urgency to the film. But without the quiet moments to punctuate it, it loses some of the urgency as it kind of ramps up towards its finale, is kind of where I land.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, what about you, Mitchie? What's your vibe?
So, I don't know. As first time I watched it many years ago, I actually don't really remember it, which says a lot, right? Because it's not particularly outstanding, I guess, compared to the other two. But one thing I do remember is kind of the way they concluded the arc of like Trinity and Neo together. As a kid, I kind of appreciated that for some reason, which is interesting because I also appreciated it watching it, now, more recently. And that's one aspect I kind of liked, was the way that they finish a story off with those two. There's not much subtext behind it, but just what they decided to do with it was is something that pleases me. And yeah, I agree though, there's far less quiet moments in this movie, and it definitely is the weakest of the three. But I don't know, it's not bad, and at the end of the day, like, half the reason why the Matrix trilogy is popular is because of the action. All the other stuff within it, all the philosophical stuff is good, but the action is also an important aspect, right? Especially to make it like a very well-known, popular film like it is. And I think the third one, the action's not so good as some of the other scenes in the other two movies, but still kind of carries through. It's entertaining. And yeah, I don't know. I remember it being shorter. I didn't realize, it's like almost as long as the other two. So
it's long, yeah. Can I say something blasphemous that I will get cancelled on, like, cool r/cool for saying?
Did you watch it on 1.3 times speed?
No, I didn't.
You're going to say it's worse than the fourth movie?
No, I think the action in this film is better than the second film. Or I liked it more.
Oh,
that is controversial.
What the hell? Didn't you just say that the action wasn't very good?
Yeah, I was kind of mid on the action in the second one.
The action in the second one is epic.
Like I said, not a good opinion to have. Just how I
this
where
needs
I
to
kind
be
of
expanded upon. You need to explain yourself, but before that, let's do the plot summary.
Okay.
And
immediately
you'll be reading it. Oh, sorry. Straight into it, eh? Jesus.
Yeah, I was present for the previous two recordings, so I remember what happened. So I was just going to do the thing.
Oofed.
Okay. Immediately following the events of The Matrix Reloaded, Neo, his body is still unconscious in the medical bay of the Hammer, is stuck in a virtual world, manifesting itself as a subway station, a transition zone between the Matrix and the outside world. Neo has no power against the Train Man, the creator of this zone, who works for the Merovingian. Trinity and Morpheus negotiate with him at gunpoint for the release of Neo. Once in the outside world, Neo and Trinity embark on a trip to the Machine City, while Morpheus, Niobe, and the others return to Zion, where the siege of the shipyard has begun. When Neo and Trinity leave, they are attacked by the Smith Bane, who blinds Neo. Neo, who discovers he can see machine-based objects, kills Bane. In Zion, the siege continues with heavy human casualties and little change in the machine's relentless onslaught. Morpheus and Niobe, piloting a dangerous route and under pursuit by Sentinels, plan to use their EMP as they arrive at Zion to destroy all of the machines in the shipyard. The shipyard's gate is opened at the last minute by the Kid and the EMP is activated. The machine's onslaught is temporarily halted and the time is used to retreat to final defenses. Neo and Trinity crash land in the machine's city, whereby Trinity is killed. A distraught Neo makes his way toward the center of the city, where he encounters the machine leader. Neo offers to stop Smith, who has now become a major concern for the machines, in exchange for peace. The leader agrees. Neo is plunged into the Matrix, where an epic battle between him and Smith ensues. Smith beats Neo, who submits to assimilation. As he is assimilated, the machines send a surge of energy through Neo, which destroys all versions of Smith. Neo dies in the process, and peace reigns as the Sentinels withdraw from Zion. In a park in the Matrix, the Oracle meets the Architect, who agrees that all humans who wish to leave the Matrix will be free to do so. When asked if she knew how this would all turn out, the Oracle says she never knew, but she always believed. I want to point out a difference of interpretation here.
Okay.
Which is where you've got... I'm curious to see what you guys think. So this is kind of toward the end, so maybe we can park it. I just want to point out that I have a different understanding of this. So when Smith assimilates Neo, the way that he survives, I didn't read that as it relating to the machines. I read that as Neo realizing the only way to beat Smith was for Smith to take Neo into his programming and in doing so become Neo and allow him to destroy Smith. Like Smith kind of... Neo is the last person alive in the Matrix because Smith is now every person in the Matrix, and in the last person being Neo, that undoes Smith's control because Neo is the same as Smith. They are both anomalies, and so in absorbing another anomaly, he destroys himself. That was my reading anyway.
I mean, yeah, okay. I don't know if the plot summary really comments on that.
You have here that it's Neo, as he is assimilated, the machine send a surge of energy.
Fair enough. Yeah. That is a good point, because always when I watched this when I was young, every time I watched it, I was like, what the fuck happened here? Like, how the fuck did Smith just die, you know? And I was kind of interpreted it as that the machines use Neo somehow. But I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. I retract that as being like the canon or something. I'm happy to discuss right now what happened. I mean,
I
what is
also
the truth?
raised an eyebrow at that.
Sorry?
I also raised an eyebrow at that. I was like, is that what happened? Like, I don't know.
I kind of loosely base this off the plot summary online, a plot summary online.
Yeah, they're always wrong.
They're all, but you're right, eh?
Wikipedia. People don't understand film. I've never been wrong before, so keep that in mind. The way I read this is, you know, at the end of the first one when Smith assimilates Neo and he breaks out, he breaks out, or it does Neo assimilate Smith, I think, right? That's what gives Smith the idea to assimilate other people after Neo comes back to life. Which
Neo blows him up. He goes inside him and then right. Yeah. But true, that's a very interesting. I didn't realize that that's visually very similar to how he dies as well in the third movie.
This is the reverse, where the thing that makes Neo and Smith the one is them coming together. That's the very same thing which will undo Smith, which is Smith absorbing Neo. So One Direction is fine, not the band, the direction. One Direction's fine, but the other is detrimental to Smith, because now that they're both the one in their respective structures, it's now like there's nothing new to make of it for Smith because he's served his purpose. He's completed everything. He's at the end of his purpose, and so he dies, right? Like the second a program's achieved everything it needs to, it has no reason to exist, so it implodes, or however you want to read.
Oh, that's how you read it.
I don't know if I'm sold on the last part. I don't know if I'm sold on the last part, but certainly the assimilation being the thing that does it is where I land.
Yeah.
I think your mileage is going to vary on why he then, like what the reason is he dies, but that's the mechanism at least.
So Neo knew that if he gets assimilated, Smith will die.
And he gets the idea, because he gets the idea from the Oracle. Because when Smith absorbs the Oracle, he gets the Oracle's eyes, and then we get the reminder later where the Oracle speaks through Smith, and he's like trying to stop her.
Yeah.
And I think it's like set up reminder payoff for like being assimilated by Smith. If you have a strong enough mind and you're and you're like this, you can influence him from the inside. You know, he isn't a totality.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. It's interesting though, because like obviously they don't explore that at all. And so it's very like much of the movie, I guess, much of the philosophy behind it's open to interpretation, but they literally design the end of the villain like that, you know, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, we got ahead of ourselves, but I just wanted to talk about that because it was I noticed it and went, someone is yelling at their iPhone right now. Someone's like, "What do you mean? I thought it was this thing."
Yeah, sorry.
So,
I kind of didn't really think about it
No,
when I was writing the plot summary. I do apologize to everyone out there that's shouting in their iPhones due to the erroneous plot summary. Well,
nothing to apologize for, Mitchie.
Arguably erroneous.
Led to an interesting discussion. So,
although your interpretation is cool because it's like the robots helping Neo, like they sort of coordinating at the end. So that's just a cool element. Yeah.
That shot when he there's like that the orange light bit, and then it's like him lying down on a thing with the thing plugged into him, and he turns into a burst of orange light, and it seems to come through the wires that are plugged into him. But I guess where the source is very difficult to tell, whether it came from outside of Neo or whether the light came from Neo and went out into the Matrix. I don't know.
Yeah. Questions. And that's what this film does brilliantly in some ways, is it sets up a lot of these and goes, hey, what do you think? And I suspect that's so much of why this trilogy is still talked about in the ways that it is that there's a lot of these things that don't have definitive answers, and I think the text is better for it because it gives you interpretive space to, like what we were talking about last time, gives you interpretive space to come back to these films at different stages of your life and different stages of disciplinary interest if you're an academic or a philosopher, and draw different things out of it and make different meanings from it. And I think if the film had been if Neo had as the surges came in, he went, like a Dragon Ball Z character going, the machines are giving me their energy. I think you could imagine a film that does that and loses the thing that makes the Matrix the Matrix. Even if what Pat said is true, that some of it is quite loud, I think even where it is loud, it manages to have an element of restraint when it needs to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm convinced about it.
Speaking of Dragon Ball Z, though, what did you think of the final fight?
Okay, well, should we talk about that last, maybe? Water-wise?
Oh.
Well, because we should... Okay, fine.
Do we follow the plot order? I don't know.
No, but it tends to... Anyway, it's fine. We can talk about the ending. Well, we can talk about the fight. I just want to talk about the meaning of the ending, because it doesn't make sense without talking about the rest of the film. We can talk about the fight. I really like this fight, and it's embarrassing.
You like it?
I think it's... I like when they're in the street. Okay, everything until they start flying, I fuck with pretty hard. When they're just pummeling each other in the street doing mad kung fu, I thought that was a really well shot.
That lasts 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
And then everything else kind of Vaselined over my brain as they do a bunch of flies and kickies and punchies and stuff.
That's a really good way to describe it. Vaseline over my brain, yeah. It does just slide right off. I like the slow motion punch that on Smith's face.
Yeah.
And just the gelatinous quality of the impact. In the next film, the boss has a bronze bust of Smith's punched face in his office.
It's dope.
It's iconic. Yeah.
Wow, I don't remember that.
One thing I want to call out is that, so just before Smith beats Neo into the crater and he monologues at him, they repeat the dojo fight between Neo and Morpheus, but it's Neo and Smith doing it, and Neo is doing Morpheus's choreography. I only picked up on it this time because we've been looking at these closely, and I'm doing my third essay edit. And so Neo uses the same
budget constraints.
No, I think it's
I'm joking.
Budget constraints.
Couldn't make a new fight. They just had to recycle it.
We couldn't afford. We had to. It's crazy, guys. But and what I like is that Neo wins the dojo exchange, and then Smith overpowers him with just raw brute strength. So he wins the technical exchange that he couldn't win last time with Morpheus, but it doesn't matter because Smith is something else entirely.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Mm-hmm. I think the rain is a good aspect too. I don't know, it's just a nice little addition, If without the rain, this scene would be kind of crap, just full stop. But with the rain, it's actually pretty cool. Yeah. It's I don't know, the action throughout this trilogy, in my opinion, is great, and so I'm happy to indulge them on this kind of weird last fight. you know, it is what it is.
Well, it's starkly, I guess maybe not that different, like to the real world battles going on. Squid robots invading Zion and people in mech suits, you know, isn't a far stretch from Goku versus Superman fight. But
True.
there is
different
like
genres, like
there's and I like how when he goes into the Matrix, the color grading like changes really dramatically, and it gives that iconic sort of greenish fade to the screen, and then you know you're in the Matrix. I always like the production elements of that.
it makes it really easy to make footage look like it belongs to the Matrix. Like when I was doing that first essay, I was like, I wonder if there's a pre-built package. There's literally a thing in Premiere that's like, do you just want to like highlight green mids and highlights? And I was like, I do. And then I pushed one button and it was just like all the footage looked like the Matrix. And I was like, oh. I imagine at the time it would have been really like you would have had to like color grade a lot of that each scene on a computer by hand. Now I'm just like, boop, Matrix filter.
I actually, I don't know. We're kind of just dwelling on the action sequences. The whole mech suit kind of sequence, I don't know, I kind of enjoyed it because of this like random like character arc with this captain dude. Like he's not in the previous two movies, and then he's in this movie at the start when he like berates a kid for dropping the ammunition boxes, and then he's just, I don't know, he's just kind of cool, you know, and he didn't complete the training at the end. Like what a what a solid sell. I don't know, I was convinced like this and then the kid gets in it. It's like I was just totally bought into it.
Well, yeah, you know, I think the Zion fight, it actually is really well put together. Like you're always following the action exactly like as it's happening. You always know where everyone is, and it got me thinking. I was thinking in the middle of it, like the Wachowskis might be better suited to like making video games or something. Like this felt like, and there was some really extra wide shots that show like when the Sentinels are, you know, forming this giant, I don't know, like line, like it's like a flowing
serpent.
Tentacle. Yeah, like a serpent. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's a very video game-esque scene right there. Like, you know, I'm thinking giant snake from Sekiro or something like that. Like, if you, I don't know, their sensibilities about how to capture action is very in line with the modern blockbuster video game sort of I don't know, scene setting sequences.
Right. It's like it's like fantastic settings with grounded outcomes and stuff, right? Like one of my favorite scenes is where the kid is clinging to the back of the mech suit because he's just punched the ammunition in, and the tentacle hits the mech pilot directly in the face, and you just like, and he's shooting his guns, and you feel that like they're not even attacking him, they're just flying past him, but they're so sharp that he's killed just by them moving past him.
Yeah,
like,
those gashes look pretty horrible. It's
so devastating, and it's like they didn't even like fire a bullet, they just moved past him, and that was enough to kill him. It really sells the weight of it, and like you combine that with how dangerous Niobe flying in the tunnels is, and like how well they sell that, and like Morpheus struggling to keep up as she gives him inputs for the thrusters and stuff. Yeah, it's a like I was gripping my fucking, you know, I was gripping the sofa, you know, arm, being like, holy shit, this is the realest shit ever. And I agree with Pat. I think it has the energy and the scale of like a prestige modern video game, which is the only place where you're getting money spent like this to do these things at the moment.
that part where Morpheus is co-piloting for Niobe, and then she's like, I said to do this, and it goes, I'm trying. That was like
so
the first time you ever see Morpheus kind of like a bit like lose it a bit, like I'm trying.
Dude, and he's sweating too. He's sweating the whole time. What I love is that Niobe's done shit like this before. So before they get going, she takes off her sweater. Morpheus doesn't, and then like by the time they're halfway through, he's sweating. His hands are clammy. It's so good.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
some
his
good
little
shit.
character notes. Yeah. But like we have to at least address it, even if we don't have anything interesting to say about it. 2003 sure was thinking about planes and invasions, right? Like the era this came out, like like you look at the Star Wars prequels and how much they are just directly commenting on Bush Jr. And at the time, the Iraq invasion, one of the many
Man,
invasions.
I never thought about that in the context of the prequel movies. Like, interesting, because isn't the first one like pre 2000 or was it 2000?
The first one's 90. Darth is going to hate me for not knowing this. I want to say 97. But something important to remember about American politics at the time is that, even the first Matrix film, you can see some of the things that are in the air that would lead to something like what happened. There's lots of people that have written about this, but if you're an artist at the time and you're paying attention in America, everyone kind of knows something is going to happen and some war is going to start. Like, it's just kind of in the you have a feeling at the time this is happening, and so it finds its way into art, no less. But the first Star Wars, it's not an accident, right? There's like trade tariffs in Naboo. It's a Cold War. The leading class of militaristic spiritual leaders are failing the state itself. Like, you can't get much more prescient than what Lucas is writing about at the time. And I think this film, in the wake of that, is playing with some of the similar themes, right? The the invasion of Zion, the fact that the Machine City, like, the power lines are shaped like oil, like lines that you would have as you transport oil across a country. My note here says, 2003 sure had politics, huh? And my point is that while not explicitly about the many, many times Afghanistan has been invaded, or Bush's invasion of Iraq, right? These ideas are in conversation with the contemporary moment of the time, to the point where as the ship approaches the Machine City, right, as they fly in, there are literal, like, ground-to-air missile strikes launched by the machines. Like, this is all stuff that people are talking about, military expenditure. It's on the news every night, right? And the outcome for this film is peace, right? It's things end in a peaceful way with an equilibrium that gives people as much free will as they can have in this moment. And of course, reality ended up in a different place, but I just want to, like, note that it's there, and just because it's the Zion invasion, and then, like, it's all in the mix. And the action scenes are absolutely phenomenal, and they completely rip you through the whole sequence, but it's all in the slurry, as it were.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting claims. I can see it. It makes sense.
I don't want to dote on it too much. I just want to, like, point out it's there and just be like,
no,
if you want to think,
like,
about this more.
Yeah, no, because you also pointed this out in the last podcast on The Matrix Reloaded, and actually Bush is actually in that movie for a split second. It's just funny. Never really. I guess, it's interesting. Political analogies in film. Sometimes for me things can be very analogous, and I can see it immediately, and other times I don't. And in the case of The Matrix, or the prequel series, prequel Star Wars movies, I never really thought about it in that way, and it's interesting that you raise it.
There's a kind of this is like, someone is going to be actually, no, I know who our audience is. No one's going to be triggered by this that's listening to this, but in theory, a thing that's tricky is, in talking about the politics that a film has, I think a lot of the time people mistake the way that film portrays that politics for that film's opinion about that politics, right?
Right.
By that I mean, if a film presents, and it's usually easier with villains for people to understand there's a difference, right? Inglourious Bastards thinks that Nazis are fucking evil. There's no two ways about it. But it also understands that it's a human struggle and it's a point in time, and there are people making decisions within that moment. I think
I
what's
mean, is
difficult...
there a movie that doesn't think that about Nazis?
There is, and you don't want to know what it is because it's fucking scary shit.
What is the movie?
I don't want to say because it'll point people to the material. I'll tell you afterwards.
What is it, like some sort of like snuff film or something? Or is it like well known?
No, it's a well-ish known film based on one of the most
okay.
hateful texts of all time.
Interesting.
Yeah. But my point largely,
It's a birth
and I
of
mean
a
like a
nation.
lot.
Sorry. Never mind.
No, you gotta.
I said, is it Birth of a Nation?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
It must be.
Yeah.
Anything Zack Snyder's made also, to a certain point.
Wait, what? Really?
He's just a real Randian kind of guy, isn't he? The distance between like thinking Rand has a point and thinking Nazis make sense is real. It's a slippery slope. Anyway, I want to talk about one last thing on that note before we can now move on and not have to talk about it again. My note, this is so insensitive. Under all of this politics, I've got like a few notes, a little paragraph about politics. Then my next note says, Trinity gets walshed real hard, which if you've seen the Firefly film, Serenity, this is how Walsh, all-time Alan Tudyk character gets got as well. As they crash a ship and he gets like run through with pipes and stuff. And in my head, that will forever be getting walshed. And then I was like, wait, this film did it first, so she didn't get walshed. Walsh got Trinity, and like that blew my fucking mind. Like I had like a mini existential crisis about that. There's, just wanted you guys to know that upset me.
I've seen Serenity once and don't remember this at all. Anyway,
what? It's real. He's I'm a leaf on the wind, and then they crash land on the planet, and then he's dead.
This Firefly and Serenity is like this unusual kind of series I've never really encountered, but you seem to like love it, and it's popped up a few times on our podcast, and I'm always just baffled about it every time.
I'm obsessed by it. I don't know if I love it. Like, I think it's incredibly compelling, and I think the way that Whedon's ideas find their way into the TV show and the way it presents conservative ideas as liberal ideas is like incredibly interesting to me, but that's a whole conversation for another day.
Anyway,
can we talk about the train station?
Wait.
Huh?
I was going to ask, because we were talking about the action before, and then I was going to say something. You need to explain why you think the action's better in this movie than in Reloaded. I'm genuinely curious, because like I feel like that is obviously, you said that's controversial because it is controversial. Why?
So on the war stuff and like the big Zion invasion, I defer to Pat's points earlier about the things that make that good. When it comes to the fighting in the Matrix itself, that last fight between Smith and Neo is so much more. Each exchange they have is very much informed by character moments and character beats, right? I talked about that dojo fight being replayed. I feel that to me has more weight and impact because it's an individual fight as opposed to some of the stuff we see in Reloaded, particularly like the Burly Brawl, where it's sort of, yes, it's a cool fight, but it doesn't have the same emotional weight because there's so many of him. And so much of that film is like, here's 25 agents, here's 25 Smiths you need to deal with. And so I guess maybe what I mean is that I prefer the hand-to-hand exchanges in this in the absence of like, it's hard to explain. If the war stuff wasn't in here, I'd completely agree. But in my head, they're kind of synonymous, right? That's the action. I find that Zion stuff really, really compelling, more compelling than I find like the Burly Brawl stuff, but there's more good hand-to-hand stuff in the previous one. So for me, it's just, I think it's like, this film has more stuff I enjoy.
Yep.
And that's why I prefer it. I wouldn't say the action's better, I just prefer it more because it's more of the stuff I'm interested in, which is like logistics in an invasion and what does that look like, and these decisions, when they're like, don't use the EMP because you're going to nuke the gate. And it's like, well, if we don't, we're fucking dead anyway. Like, that's a really compelling, thing to inject into the story. And we don't really have that kind of action in the second film in the same way.
The Smith and Neo fight does have a lot of more personal callbacks, and yeah, it has your favorite trope, David, the hero at the mercy of the villain, kind of.
Yeah. He does the speech.
Yeah, exactly. And we always froth that. I wish it connected somewhat to Smith invading that guy's body. I like how that was just sort of forgotten about, and this would have been a good moment to connect it back and like make it meaningful.
Did he even know?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
Did Smith know at the end that he somehow got a human form of himself that got killed by Neo? Like,
it seems like he didn't, right? And therefore it kind of seems like it didn't add up to anything. And I think it would have been a good opportunity to sort of, I don't know, to just acknowledge it.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Because do you want the speech? I've got it.
What speech?
The Smiths. We're talking about it. Do you want
Neo down?
Yeah. He goes. He goes. Why, Mr. Anderson? Why? Why did you do it? Why? Why get up? Why keep fighting? Do you believe you're fighting for something? For more than your survival? Can you tell me what it is? Do you even know? Is it freedom or truth? Perhaps peace? Could it be for love? Illusions, Mr. Anderson. Vagaries of perception. Temporary constructs of a feeble human intellect trying desperately to justify an existence that is without meaning or purpose. All of them as artificial as the Matrix itself, although only a human mind could invent something as insipid as love. You must be able to see it, Mr. Anderson. You must know it by now. You can't win. It's pointless to keep fighting. Why, Mr. Anderson? Why? Why do you persist? And then Neo looks up and he goes, because it's Keanu Reeves, he goes, because I choose to. And then he gets up and he wins.
That would have been, the stuff he says in that speech would have been good to tie in with, the Bane aspect. Because, like, Bane kind of, I don't know, he goes on about how he hates the body, right? Because in the physical form of being an actual human. And I don't know, just he talks about, how all those emotions and stuff are not genuine. They arise from nothing kind of thing. And it would have been interesting tying that in with how Bane felt, or if he could kind of perceive how Bane felt, he would have said that maybe quite differently. It's actually a good point, Pat. I never thought about that.
Maybe a direction you could have gone is Smith acknowledges the weight and the influence of human emotions that now that he has gone through them, and then his ultimate conclusion that he comes to is that it is still vapid and insignificant, and it is carries more weight because he speaks from experience. And maybe you could kind of attack it from the other side too, and you could have him sort of go like, because the line he has in the speech is he says this is the line that relates to that, but it doesn't get there, which is temporary constructs of a feeble human intellect trying desperately to justify an existence that is without meaning or purpose. You could then have another sentence or another few sentences where he attacks it from the other angle, and he goes like, he's like, I was one of you, and I struggled and I died, and like dying isn't that bad. Is that what you're also afraid of? Like there's nothing to be afraid of, Mr. Anderson. Just submit. Like death is peace. You kind of like you could kind of have him pitch it that way, almost trying to go like, I did that. I was human and then I died, and like I don't feel like I've lost anything. So what are you so frightened of? What are you so stressed about? Just submit.
Yeah, certainly was an opportunity there that they missed out on. Yeah.
So the way that shakes out is Smith. We kind of already said this, but so Smith's undoing is that the Oracle is inside of him, and it's her speaking through him, and she says everything has a beginning. Everything that has a beginning has an end. And then Neo lets Smith absorb him, knowing that this is Smith's flaw. It is inevitable that Smith will die in some way. And when Smith dies, it's the Oracle's body that remains, which is kind of interesting to me, right? The physical form that remains is the Oracle.
Yeah.
The mother of the Matrix.
Well, I guess because I don't know, from a more kind of logical standpoint, the Smith that fought Neo was probably that one, right? kind of makes sense, I guess, because she's like the all-powerful being within the Matrix. So
It's
therefore,
got
the clone
the
that took her.
strongest.
Yeah,
the strongest clone. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Oh, I hadn't put that together. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Because otherwise, but then the other clones kind of just like disappear. Like they you get like a bird's eye view of like all of them like vanishing in explosions of light, and there's nothing left. So what happened to all those people that he absorbed?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is all of the clones just everyone in the Matrix? Like, is just everyone
that's the point.
That's the
right?
idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where do all the people go?
The film doesn't have an answer to that.
Yeah,
but I think it's good that it doesn't. Like, I mean, the supposition could be maybe Smith's program keeps them occupied or gives them an illusion of something that's happening that means that they're not gonna reject the Matrix or something. Like, or they're all inside him in some way, right? They're all they're all sub programs inside the program that is Smith.
Maybe the Oracle and the Architect in that last conversation, what they're sort of tacitly acknowledging is that they are going to start a new cycle, perhaps.
That's pretty
Right.
well. Yeah, I mean that ending exchange. Yeah, the Architect kind of doesn't. He doubts this piece, and he sort of says, "How long do you think it'll last?" The Oracle says, "As long as it can." And then you kind of go, what about the others that want out? The Architect says they'll be freed, and the great little like chef's kiss at the end is the Oracle says, "I have your word," and the Architect says, "What do you think I am, human?" And the green filter of the Matrix has been removed thanks to Sati, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I think the assumption is that for the moment there isn't another cycle because they're going to let anyone that wants to get out get out. Because the reason the anomaly is produced is that there's only a set amount of people that can be woken up from the Matrix before another anomaly arises. Because that's part of the cycle, which is the revolutions part of the Matrix revolutions, right? Is these endless cycles, and this is the end of the endless cycles, presumably.
Right. The breaking of the wheel.
Exactly. And the truth that we know, because we live in time and space and phenomenology, is that the breaking of the wheel is just the formation of another wheel. But in this moment, it's like, well, there's an ending. There's an ending to things.
I know only what I need to know. I know that if you want to take something from our world into your world that does not belong there, you must go to the Frenchman.
Is that what you're doing here?
Rama, please.
I do not want to be cruel, Kamala. He may never see another face for the rest of his life.
I'm sorry. You don't have to answer that question.
No, I don't mind. The answer is simple. I love my daughter very much. I find her to be the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. But where we are from, that is not enough. Every program that is created must have a purpose. If it does not, it is deleted. I went to the Frenchman to save my daughter. You do not understand.
I just have never...
Heard a program speak of love.
It is a human emotion.
No, it is a word. What matters is the connection the word implies.
All right. You want to talk about the subway station?
Let's do it.
You keen on the subway station, eh?
I just think it's really interesting, and I've got no idea what to make of it, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, this shit confused me as a kid. Like, it still kind of did.
It still kind of confused me this time. So I can set it up if you want. So Neo wakes up in machine limbo, which is like a back-end entry-exit to the Matrix, where the train man on behalf of the Merovingian, again, keep in mind the Merovingian is one of the oldest programs, the train man smuggles programs in and out of the Matrix. And if the Merovingians in real life shaped Europe, the Merovingian shapes what's possible in the Matrix when it comes to programs. And we find a family at the train station, a father, a mother, and the daughter Sati. And what I really like is the way that it starts to play with like what being a person is. You know, Neo starts to talk to the father, and the father says, they're talking about, Neo's surprised that a machine can feel something like love. And the response
Yeah.
from the father is, "What matters is the connection the word implies. I see that you are in love. Can you tell me what you would give to hold on to that connection?" And he says, "I'd give everything." And then and Neo says like, "Oh well, like aren't you afraid? Like, isn't this a bad thing?" And the response there is, "It's my karma, and karma is a word like love, a way of saying what I am here to do. I do not resent my karma. I am grateful for it, grateful for my wonderful life, for my beautiful daughter. They are gifts, and so I do what I must to honor them." And this is my understanding, and it like makes my brain hurt, but so Neo is trapped there as if he were a program, but he's not supposed to be there, so he can't leave. And the programs are there, and they are surprising him by acting like people, which kind of implies that programs shouldn't be there either, because programs might also maybe be people.
Yeah. I found it interesting that he kind of seems surprised by this, because before this, there was no like inclination towards kind of humanizing machines. But like,
Maybe not.
Smith kind of, to me, seems like a very human-ish character, sort of, a very negative and nihilistic one. But I don't know, like the ideas of like this makes it seem like, oh, they're actually kind of exploring like AI sentience within this film. But like, I thought that was kind of the whole point the whole time along. Like these machines are kind of all sentient, or at least very intelligent.
Yeah, there's a difference between sentience and being able to feel love. Like,
right, but a machine saying that doesn't mean anything. I mean, what? So he's suddenly now going to believe it because there's a family of AI, and one of them says he loves his daughter, so therefore it must be true. I mean, he could have known that.
Now we're back to the first film. What is reality except your perceptions of it?
Right, but somehow he gets duped because it's like a loving family, so now he believes it, But I feel like there was, thinking about the Merovingian and his wife, there seems to be a genuinely appearing human interaction between those two, I suppose. But now it takes his family to kind of convince him, oh, okay, I guess maybe I should treat you guys like kind of like people.
Maybe because the program's speech kind of shocks Neo into thinking about the relationship between programs and emotions differently. So he says, Neo is apprehensive about believing a machine can feel love, and then the program says, well, no, love is just a word to describe my process. So instead of it being unbelievable that a machine can love another machine, it's just like, no, that is just what they do, and love is just like what that denotes is perhaps not recognizable to humans unless it's their version of love or something like that,
Yeah, like a kind of an idea. Yeah, I don't know. It's like a love. It kind of seems to indicate that Smith is sort of right in the end. I don't know, like what he says in his speech, like, or at least that is one valid kind of way of interpreting emotions. Like if like, there seems to be a lot of kind of, there's obviously love is a very big anchor point of the entire trilogy. And in this last film, they kind of actually explicitly mention it quite a lot, like this AI family. And then Smith at the end, mentions love as being one of those pointless emotions of humans. And I don't know. I don't know what to make of that, but it's just interesting, like it's just questioning the genuinity of all this kind of stuff and what we feel.
My feeling is that there are people and machines, people and programs. Machines and programs become synonymous, right? They leave the train station to go back to the machine city. So a program is a machine, right? So we can kind of remove that layer. Smith is an agent, and agents aren't normal programs like Sati, like the other programs that, like the Merovingian, right? Agents are there to keep the unnatural state of the Matrix in place, right? To keep these people subjugated. And so Smith isn't the same thing as these other programs that can feel these things, because if he felt those things, he couldn't subjugate the people within the Matrix, right? Doesn't matter how much you program someone to, if you program something like Smith to behave like the family that we meet here, he's not going to get the job done. And so I think in some ways it's like he is almost programmed to not feel these things, despite the fact that by default machines in this world can, like, that's how they come out the gate feeling. He's like an anomaly because he's programmed to not feel those things. You have to, in the same ways that you have to work on removing kindness and empathy from people once you've taught it to them, it's the same thing for a program. You have to actively excise those things to produce something like Smith. And so it's almost like we had the sentience in Smith and we had the understanding that he has motivations and feelings, but this deep hatred. And this is the kind of realization of like, actually, he's the exception, not the rule. And maybe this is why Neo decides that peace is the thing. Not we're going to beat them, not we're going to kill them, not we're going to destroy the machines, but we need peace with the machines because they themselves are capable of feeling the thing that drives the plot of the one and makes it possible, which is love.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I never thought about it like that. That's a good point, because like Neo is ultimately in the end a kind of, he doesn't want the destruction of either side, which is interesting. And I kind of always connected that to the fact that, you know, he kind of ends up being machine, you know, being half machine, half human, because he is blinded and yet he can still see like the machine world in all its like light. And so, you know, he seems to be transformed to a machine as the further along his journey he goes, which is interesting.
Or he at least can bridge the two worlds. And if we... Yeah, it is really interesting.
Well, it is because the humans are machines, right? Like not the you know, the whatever they call it, the natural born humans, but the ones with all the plugs in their backs, the ones that have all been freed from the Matrix, they are actually kind of half machine.
Well, and this is the point that I'm going to give you a quote from Westworld because I think it illustrates this well. This is Ford talking about the concept of like what consciousness is. And he says, this was the very question that consumed, I'm going to excise this person's name for spoiler reasons, but he goes, this is the very question that consumed my friend. It filled him with guilt, eventually drove him mad. The answer always seemed obvious to me. There is no threshold that makes us greater than the sum of our parts, no inflection point at which we become fully alive. We can't define consciousness because consciousness does not exist. Humans fancy that there is something special about the way we perceive the world, and yet we live in loops as tight and as closed as the hosts do, seldom questioning our choices, content for the most part to be told what to do next. No, my friend, you're not missing anything at all. And like, it's this idea that like we all to an extent follow programs and we follow rules and we follow constructed understandings of reality and we follow cultural norms and we follow social norms. And it's like, I think it underwrites a big part of like what actual psychology and decision making means, which is like there's a huge part of human psychology that's like kind of vibes based. But I think it's like speaking to the underlying question of consciousness for sure, and is of a piece with the questions this film is putting in place, which is like, yeah, if you created AI like this, and again, I want to make a distinction because AI is a big buzzword at the moment. What people mean currently when they say AI is natural language learning models. That's a broad AI, not a deep AI. Deep AI is a different thing entirely that we can't quite create yet. So this is like a different... I just want to remove it from the current kind of conversations around, language learning models and all the scams that'll get built on top of them and all that shit. It's a different thing what they're exploring. They're exploring like the production of consciousness.
Right, but that is something that we may never fully understand.
Which is exactly...
I mean, we don't even understand how it arose in ourselves within, you know, living creatures filled with blood.
Yeah, I don't want to get bogged down in this too much, but I think a good segue to make here is to your point about consciousness and what we talked about before about like perception and stuff like that. This film is very interested in eyes as like a window into the world and windows to truth, right?
Yeah.
There's two really obvious moments where this happens, which is Smith burns out Neo's eyes, right? the Merovingian wants the Oracle's eyes because they're meaningful in some ways, as well. And when Neo loses his ability to see the desert of the real, he's able to see Smith, like we've already said, because he's a machine, right? So in losing the ability to perceive actual reality, he can now see the truth of the machines. And the machine squids, we're always focused on their central eye, that big central eye, right? We talked a lot in the first film about sensation and like how that informs our reality. You know, Baudrillard said, "I think, therefore I am." Your reality is defined by your perception. So in losing his sight, Neo loses one such perception, and in the same way that in the first Matrix film, he loses the sight of the Matrix as a real thing and gains the sight of the desert of the real. In losing his perception of the desert of the real, he gains perception to something more true or something more real, which is the machines themselves, or the things behind the machines, the source itself, as the Oracle says, right? And I think this is where Borges kind of comes back for us, right? Neo is finally able to, in this moment, identify the map as the map instead of mistaking it for the territory, right? Which is really, really common in the Messiah kind of trope in mythology. You lose some aspect of something, then you gain something else, right? You think really simply about like a blind samurai who's better than the rest of the samurai that can see because they hone other senses and they focus on other things. They react to the sound of things instead of the sight of things or whatnot. You think about, in the kind of Christ myth, he sacrifices himself and he comes back with renewed powers and insight and things like that. And the squids themselves, obviously the eye is an important thing, but also they function as weird and representative of things, right? Like we already said, at one point they become a big serpent. Other times they're these lashing kind of winds. Other times they're individuals, they can change their shape. They're never one thing. You can never perceive them in the same way that when you look at an atom, the electrons and the protons are never in one place. It's the same kind of idea. It's like when you look directly at it, you can never perceive the whole of it. And it's all in the mix there around Neo arriving at the machine city, and he calls it a city of light. Right? He doesn't say this is the fortress of the enemy. He doesn't say it's horrific. He says, "I wish you could see what I could see," to Trinity. Like there's a beauty in his true sight that we don't have access to in some way.
I just want to point out also this is another close parallel to what happens in Dune, the losing of sight to gain a more profound sight.
Wait, when does that happen?
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet. Is the thing?
Not yet.
So I won't say any more than that.
Oh, someone's gonna go blind.
Perhaps.
It's me. I'm the one that's going to go blind. I'm the villain. I'm the villain in Dune 3.
Oh my goodness.
You would spoil it.
That's why I'm growing the beard. Denny called me on the celly and he said, "Hey," called me on the flip phone and he said, "David, it's time. Get that beard. Get yourself to LA. You're the big bad of June 3, 3rd June." And I said, 3rd June isn't a great title for a film, Denny. And he said, "Well, it's what I'm calling it." So, yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Interesting. Speaking of
Bit
the
of inside baseball.
City of Light, when Neo goes on about it, it's he says that to Trinity, right? And then that's just before she dies.
Well, they come into atmosphere.
Yeah.
He sees it, yeah, and then and then she dies, yeah.
Yeah, just after they see the real sun, which I don't know, it's a little bit I always liked of the film. It's kind of cool. Like the only time they actually see the real sun,
I thought you were going to be like, I wasn't that impressed.
No, I was like that as a kid. I'm like, whoa, that's like, like no one sees that and they get to see it. It's like something interesting about it. Like they see the real sun, even though there's the sun in the Matrix all the time and everything's always, it's daytime and whatnot. It's all kind of not real. I don't know. Just a little bit to add in. It's kind of cool.
That's a little brief moment of beauty. It's great.
Yeah, it's really nice. But I really like the romantic aspect actually between Neo and Trinity, which I don't know, it's interesting. Like when she dies, it's about she goes on about how she died in the last film, and then she wanted to say all these things, but then she died. But then Neo gave her the second chance to say all these things again, which she kind of does. And I don't know, it's just a kind of really, really poignant way to finish things off in a nice way. And the main thing is like, I think it really actually kind of concludes the trilogy pretty well, you know, which brings me on to thinking like, why the hell did they make another movie? You know, like Neo dies and Trinity dies and Morpheus lives on, you know, having his kind of like dreams fulfilled of the one solving everything. And yeah, I don't know, it kind of works really well as a conclusion.
We'll talk about that next time and why it happened.
Yeah, well, money, right? Well, maybe that's too pessimistic, but you know, the various reasons why you make a sequel to a film that's generally not related to the original plot or anything.
It's not a lot more complicated than money. But the reason why money makes people do things is maybe more complicated than that.
It's just, why did they have to have the two critical characters that die in the third film? Then they don't have the one critical character that actually survives. I'm sure you've thought about it, and we'll be discussing the next podcast. But like, it's just pure.
Does Neo definitely die?
Trinity dies.
I know Trinity, but I'm not sure that Neo definitely dies.
I mean,
either way, Trinity dies.
He's got the angel wings. You know, he's pretty symbolically dead, I would say.
And it makes sense as a Messiah kind of thing, right? Like making that sacrifice. If he did, like, I think the movie is meant to say to you, he's dead. You know, it'd be kind of weird if like there was some sort of evidence within the film itself saying that he's not actually dead, because like, surely you can, you know, they probably didn't think about another film coming out. They wanted to conclude it, so it makes sense that he's dead.
What's machine heaven if not a perfectly stable matrix?
What are you talking about? Is that a quote, or are you asking me?
What do you mean? Like, well, okay, if you're the machines and you have these two people that have died, and the thing that happens in mythology when saviors die is they go to their respective heavens. What's machine heaven but a perfectly functioning, sustainable matrix, which is the new matrix they've just built? So wouldn't you want the two people to go to that heaven? You plug them back in. I'm not making excuses for why it happened.
I could buy that with Neo, I guess. And I honestly don't remember anything from the next film. I've seen it once, and you know, I'm not going to say my opinion on it right now, but like, I just don't really remember anything. So I can't remember how exactly the two come back into it. But like Neo, he could feasibly be like, he's still connected to everything. So I guess he could, like, his consciousness or his being could be uploaded and then therefore preserved. But Trinity just dies, full stop. Well, I guess you could argue, but then there's copies of her on the Matrix, you know, that like, I don't know what I'm talking about now. It's just like trying to justify without actually knowing what happens in the fourth film, how they come out. And obviously I got to watch the fourth film again. But like, all I'm trying to say is that I just feel like the trilogy actually ended pretty well, you know, like it's a good ending. Like I think it's a good way to finish the arcs of all these characters.
No one's on the other side of this argument. Literally everyone on the planet agrees with you. No one's on the other side of this.
Fair enough. But I do appreciate it though. I really like the way that the two, you know, they both die together kind of thing. It accentuates that kind of love aspect of the entire story and their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which is what the whole thing's about. It's about like connection with other people and like intimacy and relationships and care, giving a shit and daring to risk it all, you know?
That's what every trilogy ends with. Think of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. It ends with Mary Jane and Peter dancing. The Dark Knight trilogy, it ends with him with Catwoman. It's always about love in the end of trilogies.
You should not finish book 3 of Maynard Trick then, because it does not end happy.
Oh no.
I want to ask a question here because I think it's pertinent to what we're talking about. What do we think the new Matrix? I mean, in the film, not excise the fact there's a fourth one. What do we think the new Matrix looks like? Because thanks to Sati, the green filter's gone. We know it's slightly bluer. But like, what do we think it means for machines and humans to have peace?
Are you like asking from like a how do they logistically go about this? Because I'm thinking about like the architect says like, oh, you know, humans that want to be freed can be freed. They can choose to do that now. How do they go about doing that? Like in the Matrix world, they got big announcements. You know, the president in the United States of America Matrix version is like, well, we're all living in the simulation, and you know, your masters have given you the choice of leaving if you want, but just be mindful that the world out there is pretty dog shit. It's like, you know, there's no sunlight and stuff, so I don't know. You might want to think about it. And then all the destitute, poorer people of the world leave because they don't like what they're doing in a Matrix, while all the wealthier and well-off people don't leave because they prefer their own world. I don't know. I'm just what happens
in all the urban centers around the world where people go to vote. They've now set up like blue pill and red pill booths, and you have to like line up and get it. Yeah.
It's mandatory. You have to take one or the other.
This is literally the plot of a Doctor Who episode that Stephen Moffat wrote.
Which one?
It's the Star Beast one where they're on the ship. It's the where every year you have to go and vote whether you want to know the truth or not.
Yeah, with the giant flying turtle.
Fucking
one of the first episodes in the Matt Smith series.
Yeah, when we all should have known what was coming, but that should have been a clue to what his view of the show was. My point, I was going to say, I like that Pat, independent from any reading, Mitchie just like in about 2 sentences identified the problem with capitalism, which is like, yeah, if all the poors could not be under the thumb of these rich fuckers and have literally any other option,
man, you can take any sentence that I think and somehow connect it to how bad capitalism is.
I can take anything in reality and take it because everything is every part of our current moment and our current understanding of reality is informed by the systems of capital that produced it. So like, we can't do this because it's a whole other lecture, but like, it's not about you or about me. It's about like understanding that it's existentially interwoven into the ways in which we even like comprehend what the proletariat is versus the bourgeoisie, like what the worker is, what the laborer is, as opposed to the ruling class. Anyway, I was going to ask another question.
I think it's I don't know, but yeah, sure.
Pat, from your perspective, we can't, as I said, that's a whole other lecture. It's a whole other conversation. I wanted to know Pat's opinion on this. So this film kind of has a weird structure to it where you get to the end and you're like, okay, like everything ended happy? ? Like, is this a good ending or not? Like, I don't know.
Is it a good ending? I don't know. I don't think you can.
Or like, is it
good for whom? Like,
yeah,
good
like,
as in,
is
like,
it a
it's just
happy
quality
ending?
film, or good as in good for the people in the Matrix?
Okay, what I'm asking, what I'm interested in is the film posits this as the happiest ending that's possible, which is the Oracle's kind of believed peace has come to fruition, and all it costs was Neo's life as the one and Trinity as his kind of partner, and all of the souls that died at Zion, both being the machines and the people. Is, like, considering all the stuff we've talked about philosophically so far with what the Matrix films are about, which is like perception and reality, is it sufficient that the machines will allow some mechanism, like we just talked about it, we don't know what the mechanism is, but some mechanism for people that choose to leave the Matrix unopposed? Like, is that the happiest ending where they live in kind of a symbiotic kind of scenario and then you can leave the Matrix should you desire and then you and the machines are chill? Or is the happy ending that all the humans get freed and they rebuild society? Like, what is the based on what the films are thinking about, like, where do you land on the ending itself and kind of what it's gesturing at?
Yeah, I'd say in that case, it is a happy ending. It's got freedom, like choice, the choice to be free. It's got peace. It's got, a hedonistic society that gets along in terms of the humans. It's got robots figuring out their own sapience. Everyone's on the path to sort of like development, if you will. It's like the start of history, kind of. Yeah, I'd say all in all, it's a pretty good ending.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's the it's the pre-2016 imagining of like what we think the world should look like, which is like, what if it was a technocracy? What if there was a bunch of really smart people and the best people in their fields ran the best parts of what they do, and everyone was free to do what they wanted to do? How naive we were. But yeah, it has that energy of like, this is what we thought the world should look like. And then, yeah, 2016 happened and different things happened and our imagining of what that looked like changed. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I thought you'd say something like that. So,
yeah. Speaking of, I guess Zion is a technocracy. But speaking of that, though, that just reminded me about this weird little, and it's through this the previous movie as well. This plot line of the guy in charge of the defenses of the city and how he's like rubbing up against the decision of the leaders. Like, what was
Commander Locke.
Yeah, what was the point of that? Like, what was that all about? I don't understand. Like, was he in the right or was it that trope that, like, you know, some hot-headed military commander who can't think in 3 dimensions, just like, you know, thinks a straightforward approach is like the best approach, and he would have doomed the Zion otherwise. Like, what is this arc? What is this character?
He's interesting because one aspect I noticed in this film is that when he's like keen on the EMP being detonated, right, being activated when the ship with Morpheus and that are trying to get their way into Zion.
Well, no, not initially. Initially, he's resistant, right?
No, initially he's resistant, and then some, because it'll destroy the defenses as well. And then the other guy says to him, but, you know, there are no defenses. Like, the whole bloody shipport or whatever it is like basically destroyed. And he's like, he kind of, all right, fair enough, let's detonate the CMP. And then when they arrive and they've detonated it, he says to Morpheus and Niobe, like, you fucked everything up, you know, now all the defenses are down. It's like, but you know the defenses were already down. So he's like berating them almost just like, because that's kind of what he is, you know?
Yeah, is he just there to like sort of, you know, rustle shit up, like, just to be...
But I think he kind of appreciates what they did in some sort of like undertoned way, you know? Like, he won't admit it to their faces, but like... I don't know. He's an interesting character.
He's kind of annoying.
Yeah, he is kind of annoying. Yeah, but that's what makes him interesting, you know.
Yeah, he's a compelling dick. It's hard to write. It's hard to write someone that is like annoying, and you're like, they're annoying in a really interesting way.
Let's be honest though. Without him, the machines might have destroyed all of Zion before Neo even got to, you know, the robot president. So like, who knows? He might have saved the day.
Yeah, well, that's why the you know, the term technocracy got me thinking about him, is because he is actually the best person for the job. But the thing is, yeah, he is the best person, but he keeps fighting with his, you know, the people in charge. So like, what's the point of setting this up? You know, like.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I mean, the simple answer is like, if the job requires you to do bad things to make your way into the job, it means it's probably a bad job that shouldn't exist. And like, the supposition that there has to be someone in charge of Zion's defense is the problem. The fact that he's good at it is good because it keeps everyone alive, but the fact that it need to exist at all, it's a problem. And so he's both right. He's both right and wrong. You know what I mean? Like, he's the perfect person for the job, a job that should only exist during war times.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that Locke as a figure is interesting because he is... The thing we haven't said out loud is that he is in opposition to Morpheus's belief in the One. So he's kind of positioned as like the rational one that the film finds distasteful in some way or finds incorrect in some capacity, right? And it's like we said last time, you know, that there's this thing these films are interested in, which is when someone tells you that something is wrong or that you can't do something, that's what galvanizes you to believe in yourself to do it, or it frees you to try and do it. I feel like he occupies that role for Morpheus, right? He's a direct opposition to Morpheus in the same way Neo's in opposition to Smith. There's something about him that gives Morpheus the confidence to sustain his beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know. I feel like he kind of makes sense in the story. I wonder what happens to him.
God, I don't know. I'd love...
Old Locke.
Give me like a series of like vignette short stories in the wake of this war of just like people in Zion going about their lives, you know? I'd love that.
Didn't they make a little animated series? I don't know if it's about that, but...
Animatrix.
Yeah, Animatrix, yeah.
Sorry, a little animated series, Pat? You mean the best Matrix content?
Oh, is it?
It is actually really good.
Bro, it whips so hard.
Why don't we cover it?
We have... Hey, guys, we're in control of this program. We could cover...
a secret Easter egg episode. We're going to do Animatrix.
Secret bonus drop after Matrix 4. We cleanse our palate.
It actually is some good shit. I've only seen it once, but I remember it and I like it.
Am I crazy or is it by Shinichiro Watanabe? Let me look this up.
I don't...
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, I don't... It's by someone renowned, I thought.
Yeah, Watanabe, yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. He is the director behind Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo.
I was gonna say it. The throwaway sentences in the Matrix where someone's like, you know, all the stories you hear about werewolves and vampires, you know, that's glitches in the Matrix and shit. The whole show is stuff like that, where it's like, what about the wacky fringes of this thing, and what do those look like? It's awesome.
Well, there's a bit of that, but then there's also kind of like kind of lore contextualization on like the relationship between machines and humans.
True.
You know, like they weren't always just like. It's not like that they were always hell-bent on just subjugating each other, but like there were periods throughout history where they just worked together, then they had a war, and then they didn't. Like, you know, it's like there's a bit of that in it.
I forgot about that.
And do you remember that? Do you remember the animation with the sprinter?
Give me a little bit more source. I need more context.
Nah, I don't want to spoil it. But it's just like the guy sprinting like for a race, like Usain Bolt sprinting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
like there are lots of random little stories. Yeah, it's like, what is it? Like it's a 90-minute kind of like lots of little episodes, but it's kind of put into a movie, right? Like where it's all done and you can just watch it all at once. Is that it?
Yeah, this is embarrassing to admit. I'm old enough that I had the DVD. And in between each of them, it would go back to the DVD menu. You couldn't watch them all as one. But
okay. Yeah, well, I watched it on DVD too. I can't remember though.
You might have just had like a... But I think we should definitely cover it, because I think it's some of the best Matrix content, I have to be honest.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, really good kind of supplementary material.
Okay, well, let's put that in the back pocket. I want to... Do you guys have any other big topics you want to talk about? Because I have one little thing. Pat's
like, oh, not again. Now I've got to do another one.
No, I'm down for that. I'd like to watch
I'm joking.
But no, I don't have anything else I want to talk
about. Yeah, nah.
Okay, I'm not going to give anything away. I want Pat and Mitchie independently. So I'll hear you both separately. I want you to try, and Pat's going to have a bigger edge on this because he knows me and he's probably read some of my essays about it. What do you think it is about Resurrections that I like? I want to hear Mitchie first, because I think I kind of know what you're going to think of it, but I just think from from the method of this thing paying off, I'm interested in what you think I enjoy about Resurrections.
A personal connection with the movie based on your childhood.
Pat?
I think you like it because it's unconventional and abrasive and sort of is intentionally like against the grain of what perhaps against the grain of the production behind it.
Time will tell. Time will tell. Both interesting pitches.
I read your article.
Which one? The Resurrections one?
Yeah.
Interesting. What's
interesting, Mitch? You read one of my articles.
No, just like the. Anyway, no. I don't want to say anymore because I'll tip my hat in some type of way. I just want to give you guys like a clean run at my opinion next time. But I'm very excited to talk about it because I haven't done any. I've never spoken about this film publicly, like on microphone.
Interesting.
So I'm interested.
Yeah, and you got a special opinion about this film.
I will
because you think of it positively.
I will relitigate my ice cold take on the Matrix franchise, which is the closer it comes to representing the philosophies that it's based on, the less interesting it becomes as a story, but the more interesting as a philosophical vehicle it becomes. That was my Galaxy Brain pitch in episode 1. I guess we'll see next time when we talk about Resurrections. I'm interested to see where we land.
Yeah, no, I'm totally prepared to give this movie a second chance because I don't really remember it anyway. I definitely was disappointed the first time, but I'm gonna wipe my brain and watch it again, and I'm actually keen to watch it.
You ready to resurrect your expectations of this film?
Oh, very good, Pat. Very good. Did you want to reload your opinions on it? To revolve into a new point of view.
Revolve? You mean revolutionize?
I fucked that up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Shit.
You cooked that one.
That's revolves. Can't win them all.
All right, we done?
I think we're done.
Unbelievable. Under 90 minutes.
It's honestly a record for me lately.
Yeah, but I know. But it is the Matrix Revolutions. It's probably the least to talk about in this film.
Yeah, not a lot happens. It's big set pieces, not a lot of plot stuff.
All right. Well, if we're done, if we're wrapping up, then I guess we move on to the plugs. Mm-hmm. Got to plug our shows, you know. Pat, would you like to initiate that aspect of the episode?
Fucking seamless, you guys.
There's no Stitcher anymore, by the way.
Yeah,
Stitcher's like
gone.
fucking obsolete. Yeah. We've been saying that probably way longer than we should have been.
Okay. If you want to find more of us, you can find us at Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. We have a website, amttm.com. Find our socials from there. Oh, yeah. If you want to send us any emails, it's mail@amttm.com.
Go to the
We're still waiting.
Go to the website, amttm.com. Can I plug my essays today? So for each of the films we're covering, I am writing an essay and publishing a video essay of that essay over on my long, kind of dormant, occasional video essay YouTube channel, The Antagonist. You can find that at youtube.com/The Antagonist essays. It's kind of taking a lot of the ideas that we talk about and translating them into the most interesting thing that I want to cover about that particular Matrix film. So there'll be 4 of them in total. And my goal with them was to keep them all below 7 minutes. So they're kind of short and snappy, and I'm kind of spending a lot of time in the edit. So if you enjoy the kinds of stuff we talk about and you went, I wish there was a really concise coverage of one particular aspect, that's a place you can go find it. Otherwise, zeroindent.com for all of my other stuff. You guys know what it is.
Thank you very much. And, well, next time we're going to be covering the final film, unless we actually do the Animatrix, which...
I think we should. I think we should.
Yeah, I think we should.
Just a treat.
Concluding the film series, that's very soon.
A treat for ourselves is the Animatrix, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
we've had the main course, we've had the 4 main courses, and then we have a little dessert at the end.
Sure. Great analogy. So, thank you for listening, and just for context, David gave me the finger.
I wouldn't. There's no proof of that, so.
Nah, I've been screen recording the whole thing. Nah, I haven't actually been.
Got me on tape.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening in on our coverage of the Matrix Revolutions. Join us next time for Matrix Resurrections.
Bye.
Bye.